Guys, welcome into a video I am extremely excited to make. Today I will be tier ranking all 32 NFL starting quarterbacks based off of the 2021 regular season. Let's get to it. All right, yeah, so I'm going to quickly go over the categories, explain each one, and then we're going to rank all of these. These are 32 quarterbacks of the 2021 regular season. I've changed the name of these categories. The first one is the Elite, which is basically your MVP candidates of the past year. I like to limit it to like 4 or 5 guys, make it exclusive. The Above Average, you know, a good quarterback, not an MVP candidate, but still a serviceable franchise-type quarterback. Your Average quarterback, this will also include slightly above average, slightly below average. You know, a guy who's decent, not going to win you a game, not going to lose you a game. You've got your below average quarterback who obviously isn't very good, but, you know, he shows maybe a little bit of promise. Maybe he makes a few plays, has a few good games. And then the unplayable section, which is just the guy who, you know, has a horrible touchdown to interception ratio, like a negative ratio, things like that. So just completely unplayable and was a net negative for the team. Actually hurt his own team in 2021. So let's get this started. Looks like we've got Kyler Murray as the first guy. And I will throw Kyler Murray. You know, you ask me this week 7, week 8, I probably put him in elite, but right now I would say he's towards the top of above average. The one thing with Kyler Murray that's interesting, he's so small. And everyone just goes to, oh, look at, you know, Russell Wilson. Look, he's small, he has success. But Kyler Murray is legitimately, I feel like, 2 inches smaller than Russell Wilson. So I almost wonder if his height really limits his ceiling. He's still a good quarterback, but in general, it's interesting. Next, we've got Dak Prescott. I'm also going to throw him in. You know, there could be a few Cowboys fans arguing elite after that playoff game. I don't think so. He's also above average. There's an interesting argument between Kyler Murray and Dak Prescott. Personally, I do think Dak Prescott is just straight up a better quarterback. His height, you know, he does have a lot of weapons, maybe a few more weapons than Kyler Murray, but it's not like Kyler Murray has a bad offense. I do think Dak Prescott is a little bit better than Kyler Murray. Both of them upper tier of above average. They're not elite, but they are upper tier. I think Dak had 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Kyler Murray was an early MVP candidate, got injured, was out for 3 games, and then came back and really couldn't find a rhythm. Next, we have Tom Brady. You know, you got to throw him in elite right now. Whether or not he'll be number 1, I guess we'll see. There were a lot of people arguing for Tom Brady to be the MVP, actually. He had all the counting stats. He had the most touchdowns in the league, the most total yards. Aaron Rodgers missed a few games or like 1 game and a half compared to Tom Brady. That's why he led. But Tom Brady, I think he had like 10 more touchdowns than Aaron Rodgers anyways. Brady, it's impressive. He does have a lot of weapons, and I think Tom Brady... We'll see if this makes sense, but Tom Brady benefited from almost some of these injuries to the receivers because it created this narrative like Tom Brady has no weapons. Well, he had Antonio Brown for, what, 7 or 8 games? He had Mike Evans for most of the season. He had Chris Godwin for most of the season. Chris Godwin didn't get injured until like week 12. Leonard Fournette didn't get injured until like week 13 or like later in the season. So there was this narrative that, oh, Tom Brady's doing this without all these guys. He really wasn't. All of his weapons got injured late in the season. Now he's doing it in the playoffs without everyone, except maybe Leonard Fournette comes back. Obviously, Antonio Brown getting released. Mike Evans is still there, and then Chris Godwin, the ACL tear. So we'll have to see what happens there. But Tom Brady, he's in the elite category, leads the league in touchdowns. It's crazy he's doing it at this age, but he does have really good weapons. We have to understand that. Next is Tua. I think Tua is probably the most average quarterback right now, one of the most average quarterbacks in the NFL, so he'll probably be right, literally smack dab in the middle of this average category. It just doesn't seem like Miami is fully committed to Tua, whether they want to trade for Deshaun Watson or maybe another type quarterback. They just don't seem fully committed. They did get him a weapon in Jalen Waddle, but it was really interesting how they used Waddle, who's really a speed guy. He became sort of like a receptions type receiver where I don't know if he wasn't running deep routes. I didn't watch the Dolphins enough, but you know, you'd see Jalen Waddle's stat line. It'd be like 8 catches for 52 yards. Like, what? It seemed like he was just a possession receiver. So Tua last year played really scared. This year, it just seems like Tua is not playing freely. I don't know if anyone else sees that, but it's just like, don't be afraid to throw a few interceptions. We know interceptions, turnovers are not good, but throw the ball down the field. I would put him probably as one of the most average quarterbacks right now. He's done with his year 2 in the NFL. Next, Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold has a case to be the worst starting quarterback in the NFL based off of his 2021 season.
He won a few games early, but he went through an absolutely brutal stretch where I think he had a 6-game stretch, 1 touchdown, maybe 5 interceptions. He's terrible. Unplayable. He will not be a starter next year. Carolina, they tried the experiment. There was the narrative early on, maybe the Jets are just a really dysfunctional franchise. Sam Darnold was a top prospect, coming out of USC, but he's just not a very good NFL quarterback. If Sam Darnold embraces a backup role in the NFL, I think he could have a very, very long career. The problem is a lot of these guys have big egos. They want to start. They want the ability to start. The key with being a career backup, you got to know your position. You got to know your place. Sam Darnold, if he embraces being an NFL backup, could develop into a good backup. But in terms of a starter, it's just not happening. Next is Patrick Mahomes. There's debate. Do you put him in, first above average or the elite? I'm going to put him at the back end of elite. I think he was either the 4th or 5th best quarterback in the NFL this year. The one thing I'll say with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, just the lack of explosive plays this year was shocking. Early on, there were some interception problems. He kind of cleaned those up late. Still a really good year overall for any quarterback, but in terms of Mahomes, this is like a down year for Mahomes, and he's still borderline elite. So that just tells you how good of a career Patrick Mahomes has had so far. Maybe a little bit of a down year. Again, just the one thing I noticed with the Chiefs offense, there's just a lack of explosive plays. It seems like every touchdown drive the Chiefs have, it's taking 12, 13, 14 plays. There's just no, big 50 or 60-yard chunk plays with the Chiefs. At least that's what it feels like to me this year, and that's what's really hindering them. Next, we have Justin Herbert. So this is borderline. Right now, I might change this later as we get to more quarterbacks. Right now, I'm going to put Justin Herbert first on the above average, better than Dak, worse than Mahomes and Brady, because I want that elite tier to be exclusive, only 4 or 5 guys. Justin Herbert would probably be right now, if I ranked all 32 quarterbacks, quarterback 6 or quarterback 7 on my list. So he's borderline. He's close. The Chargers were a tie away from making the playoffs with a, not great defense. He threw for a lot of yards, had an unbelievable rookie year, followed that up. There was no sophomore slump with Justin Herbert. Really good year. He is a clear franchise quarterback, and he will be elite. But it's just, I might move him to the back end of elite. I just need to see how this sets up. Right now, we'll put him at better than Dak and Kyler, but worse than Mahomes and Brady. Next, we have another borderline, Matt Stafford. So is Matt Stafford versus Justin Herbert. This is a good one. It feels like I have to think about this for a little bit. Right now, with Matt Stafford, we're going to put him just behind Justin Herbert. There could be a few people arguing for him to be in the elite tier. I want to keep that exclusive. I know a few other guys down here that are going to be in the elite tier. We'll put him at the top end of above average. Really nice season for Matt Stafford. His ball placement. I've seen Matt Stafford probably make 2 or 3 of the best throws in the NFL. That's including Aaron Rodgers. Seriously, there were 2 or 3 throws with Matt Stafford where he literally threw Cooper Kupp open. He wasn't even close to open when the ball was released, and it was just placed perfectly. He has absurd arm talent. He does benefit this year from Sean McVay. They do have a good, group of receivers. Robert Woods did go down midseason, but they got Odell. Cooper Kupp is phenomenal, but also he's elevated Cooper Kupp's game, so you have to give him some credit for that. But right now, this is a really interesting debate between Stafford and Justin Herbert. Who would you rather have? It's neck and neck. I'd probably lean slightly towards Herbert, but these two guys are very high-end, above-average quarterbacks in the NFL. Next, we have Teddy Bridgewater. And I'm going to throw him right now in the below average category. You could try and make an argument maybe a few years ago that he was an average quarterback. Not a great situation in Denver, but I do feel like they have a few weapons. Jerry Jeudy, I guess we'll see what he develops into. Noah Fant. But Teddy Bridgewater is just not a good quarterback. He should not be starting next year in this league. He could, embrace a good backup role and be a good backup quarterback to where your starter gets injured. You need someone to fill in on a good team. He could maybe lead you to a win or at least keep the ship righted. He's had experience, but in terms of a quarterback, I think he's towards the middle of a below average type quarterback at this point in his NFL career. Baker Mayfield, my goodness. I mean, we have to say the injury in week 2, he played, with the shoulder problem. We will put him in below average. We'll put him above Teddy Bridgewater. I will say the injury, we understand it. In 2020, he was a, top, I would say 13 or 14 quarterback. He played injured all season. But the other thing I'll say, there were some really poor reads this season by Baker. I mean, just that Pittsburgh game in Week 17, that Monday night game. Oh, my God. I think Baker took 7 sacks that game. Probably 5 of them were his fault. And the thing is, a lot of casual fans don't understand sacks can be a quarterback's fault. They think of a sack, oh, it's always the offensive lineman's fault. No, if you're holding onto the ball when you've got a receiver wide open and then you take a sack after 4 or 5 seconds, that's the quarterback's fault. And that happened 3 or 4 times just in that Pittsburgh Monday night game alone. So with Baker, Browns fans are just trying to put it all on the injury, all on the injury. He had issues reading the field. I don't know if it was because the injury maybe knocked his confidence down. He was playing bad. It kind of all compounded, but just not a good year. And he's playing for a contract next year. We'll have to see what he's gonna. He may have the most pressure of any quarterback healthy going into next year playing. If he plays well, he's getting $35 million per year. If he plays bad, he's probably signing a 1-year deal with the Detroit Lions or something. So very interesting, going to be crazy for Baker. He's a top, this past year, just based off of 2021, top end below average. Top end below average. Even playing injured, he had some decent games, like against the Bengals, against, the Chargers. That was a really good shootout. They ended up losing. Next, we have Carson Wentz. And with Carson, you want to put him in above average, but I just can't do it. I think he's a top-end average quarterback. He's better than Tua. He had a decent year, really ended poorly with the loss to the Jaguars, knocking the Colts out of the playoffs. You want to talk about a tale of 2 seasons. Even just like Week 14, Week 15, everyone was like, are the Colts the favorite in the AFC? They end up not even making the playoffs. It's pretty funny, and it's sad for them. But Carson Wentz, I just was never feeling it this year. I know what the stats say. Going into the last game, I think Carson Wentz had like 26 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions. They're good stats, and to be fair, Carson Wentz does not have a number 1 receiver. He doesn't. He's got a superstar running back. He's got a good offensive line. We understand that, but still, that's hugely important to a quarterback to have a number 1 receiver. Carson Wentz didn't have that, but this past year, I just have not bought Carson Wentz at all. I think he's a high-end average quarterback. You could make an argument based on his stats that he should be a low-end above average quarterback. Right now, we'll put him as a high-end average quarterback. Next, we do have Joe Burrow, and Burrow was elite this year. He just was. I'm actually going to move him ahead of Mahomes. You look at Burrow, and I was talking about Mahomes and the lack of explosive plays. I believe Burrow was first in yards per attempt, yards per completions, all those stats where you're forcing the ball down the field. You're getting those explosive plays. You're generating things. He does have a great receiving core. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Tyler Boyd, along with Joe Mixon, the running back. Kind of a patchwork offensive line. But Joe Burrow was unbelievable. He completely broke out. I am going to keep him behind Brady. Well, right now we'll keep him behind Brady. Let's see how this plays out. I'm going to keep him behind Brady for right now. I may think of moving him in front, but what a season for Burrow. I know he only threw for 34 touchdowns, but just you got to look at the yards per attempt, yards per completion. It's all number 1 in the NFL. That's telling me the explosive plays are there. The Bengals had such a good offense, and Burrow is just transforming into an MVP candidate. There were people saying Burrow should win the MVP. I've heard Burrow win the MVP, Brady, and Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers very likely to win it, but those 3 guys. Next, we have Big Ben Roethlisberger, and Big Ben wasn't as bad as people said he was. You do have to put him behind Wentz, but I am thinking he seems to be right on par with Tua. His numbers were not bad. Now, he is deteriorating. We know that his mobility is getting worse, but I gotta be honest, guys, people were making fun of him. Obviously, he's not as good as he once was, but he really wasn't that bad. I mean, the Steelers made the playoffs. It was a little lucky, sure, but that's a tough AFC North to play in. His total yards were decent. His touchdown to interception ratio was decent. I'm going to keep him above Tua right now. Kind of a little slightly above average for Big Ben this past year. I know a lot of people clowned on him, and he's doing a good thing retiring next year. I don't think he would start for the Steelers. But yeah, just you look at his numbers. I was surprised at how not bad his numbers were because a lot of people just clowned on him. So we're going to put him right in the middle of average, worse than Carson Wentz, and then slightly better than Tua. Next, we've got Derek Carr. And to me, this is an interesting battle between Wentz and Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr is slightly better than Carson Wentz. There are people that are going to want to put Derek Carr in the above average category. I can't do it. I think he's a high-end average quarterback. He's decent, but it's the same story every year with Derek Carr. I've got him at average. That's where I think he is, slightly better than Wentz. But again, that above average, that upper tier, is he as good as a Kyler Murray, as a Dak Prescott, as a Matt Stafford? He's not. He's a slightly above average quarterback, but not that far above average, if that makes sense, to where he's on these guys' levels. He's not. He's better than Wentz. Yeah, he is. I would say he's clearly better than Wentz, but he's not on the level of any of these guys. Next, it looks like Tyrod Taylor, who kind of spot started. Looked like Davis Mills was really starting towards the end of the season for the Houston Texans. With Tyrod, we'll put him in between Baker and Teddy Bridgewater. Really, Tyrod's kind of a journeyman quarterback, got the starting gig, would be a really good backup quarterback with a lot of experience, but in terms of a starter, he was put in a bad situation. Houston, the whole Deshaun Watson thing, no receivers. Although, you got to give a shout out to Brandon Cooks. That's a quality NFL receiver. We understand that. I'm sorry for disrespecting him. But still, just not a good offense. The running back's kind of a mosh pit. There at the running back position. David Johnson, Philip Lindsay making his debut there. So below average. Again, a really good backup. Like Teddy Bridgewater could be a really good backup. Tyrod Taylor could be a really good backup. Sam Darnold could develop into a really good backup. But as a starter, these guys are just not good. Next, we have Jameis Winston, who, what did he make? Like 4 starts? I actually looked back at Jameis' stats before this video. 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So that's really good. But I don't know who else you would have with New Orleans. I mean, this guy only played in 5 games. Taysom Hill maybe as their starting quarterback. But I think I'm just going to put him in average. He's above Big Ben, below Carson Wentz. With Jameis, we know the story with him. A lot of touchdowns, a lot of interceptions. He can score you 30 points, but he can also throw 2 pick sixes. It almost would have been funny if they just would have put like Ian Book as the quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. It would have been funny if they did that. He only started 1 game and was just horrible in it. But it's like, where do you want me to put Jameis Winston? Jameis Winston played in 4 games. I don't understand. So we'll just put him above. I would say, I would rather have him over Big Ben this past year, but probably not Carson Wentz. Honestly, maybe he was better than Carson Wentz. But again, if you're starting 5 games, it's tough. Next, we have Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is another one. I think you're looking at somewhere within this average range. I'd say definitely above Big Ben. It's tough with Jameis. He played in 5 games. I'll move him above Jameis because he has the games played. So Jalen Hurts, the guy can run. He definitely can run. His throwing, it's iffy. It doesn't look like Eagles fans are too happy with him. That was a bad, playoff game. It's tough. You're facing the Bucks. That's a good defense. Tom Brady, what are you going to do? But that was not competitive. I thought they had a chance to pull off an upset or at least keep it close due to the injuries that the Buccaneers had on the offensive side of the ball, but they just weren't able to do anything. It was a complete blowout loss. So Jalen Hurts, it'll be interesting. What happens with Jalen Hurts next year? The Eagles have 3 first-round picks. Do they think of trading 2 of those first-round picks for Deshaun Watson? Do they think of using one of those first-round picks to move up or, trade up, get a franchise quarterback in the draft, and then maybe keep Jalen Hurts, start him at the beginning of next year, groom the franchise quarterback to take over? We'll have to see what happens with him. But he's an average quarterback, way above average runner, but a below average thrower. Next, we have Ryan Tannehill. Really not a good year for Ryan Tannehill. I still think I would... it seems like, to me, his stats were worse than he played. I was looking at his stats, I believe in like week 17, and he had 17 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. That's not good. That's like Baker Mayfield stats. But you put him on par with Tua, maybe over Big Ben as well. I might have to move Tua over Big Ben. That's one of those, you're splitting hairs with those two. But this is where we'll put Ryan Tannehill. Disappointing. A lot of people say he relies on Derrick Henry, things like that. I might have to move Ryan Tannehill down. I mean, you've got A.J. Brown was injured. Julio was injured. He's kind of washed. We won't go there. If Julio and A.J. Brown were healthy and Ryan Tannehill put up those stats, I'd move him down. But, he's a tough guy to rank. It was a down year. There were people that, if you asked me at the beginning of this year, where will Ryan Tannehill be? You could argue he's a high-end average quarterback or a low-end above-average quarterback. That's how well he played last year. This year, it just wasn't very good. We'll leave him there. I like his spot in between Jameis and Big Ben, for this year. Next, Lamar Jackson. To me, Lamar, I would put him... Was he better than Derek Carr this past year? I think he was. So the thing with Lamar, people have to understand this. This guy his strength is not throwing the football. He's an elite running quarterback. That's what he is. The 13 interceptions, 16 touchdowns, it doesn't look great, but the way he can run the football, the way they can generate offense in Baltimore, even in a down year for Lamar, I would still have him over Derek Carr. I still would. Oh, absolutely. When it comes to him being in kind of an elite tier, like an above average, this past year he just wasn't good enough. He did make the Pro Bowl, I don't know how, above Joe Burrow, but I'd put him at high-end average just based off of this past year. I'll still take him over, definitely. I mean, even Lamar having a bad year, I'm taking him over Derek Carr and Wentz. I definitely am. Next is Zach Wilson. You know it's tough with these rookie quarterbacks. We're going to run into some of these. I'm going to put Darnold worse. Zach Wilson kind of played a little bit better towards the end of the season. He randomly had like a 50-yard touchdown. I don't know if anyone remembers that. But, I mean, yeah, the dude had more interceptions than he did touchdown passes. The stats tell the story. Again, this is one of those situations where he's a rookie quarterback getting thrown into a bad franchise and having to start. It's tough. It is what it is. But he was, basically unplayable. He was not good. Next, we have Josh Allen. And to me, definitely the elite tier. I am going to move him ahead of Mahomes. And right now, we'll put him... Yeah, I like that. We'll put him third right now. So Josh Allen, looks like his head is cut off, and that's Josh. Yeah, that is Josh Allen. So, the thing with Josh Allen, I really liked what Josh Allen did this year. Sure, he had 14, 15 interceptions, whatever it was, but I like quarterbacks forcing the issue, throwing the ball down the field, generating big plays, 36 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. I think those were his final stats. I like that a lot. And then his elite running ability, especially in the red zone, being able to get those first downs on 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. He's a physical guy. He's a big guy. And then you take a look at the playoff game, the 5 touchdown passes. You don't want to, factor that into this overall rating. But Josh Allen, clearly an elite quarterback. Not really in the MVP discussion because he started off slow. But towards the end of the season, he really turned it on. And right now, he's my QB3. Definitely in that elite category. Next, we have Kirk Cousins. It's tough with Kirk Cousins, man. So Kirk Cousins, I believe his final numbers were 33 touchdown passes, 7 interceptions. His numbers are so good. It's like, I want to put him here. I really do. But I just don't know if I could do that. Kirk Cousins might be the toughest quarterback to rank because his stats are so good, but it's like, it just doesn't generate to wins. And it's not like the Vikings have this terrible defense. So right now with Kirk Cousins, he does have Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. That's an elite 1-2 combo in the NFL. We'll leave him at the back end of above average with Kirk Cousins. I like that. Yeah, putting him in average seems wrong. 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. You got to leave him at the back end of above average based off of his season. Next, we've got Jimmy Garoppolo. We know where this is going. Somewhere in the average. Where is he going to fit in? Is he better than Carson Wentz? I don't think so. I think that's a good spot for him. He's in front of Hurts and behind Carson Wentz. Typical average quarterback. The 49ers very likely moving on from him after this year. We'll have to see how they finish off in the playoffs, but you draft Trey Lance 3rd overall and you trade up and use a 3rd overall pick. That's a heavy investment. Everybody expects Trey Lance to be the 49ers starting quarterback next year. I do think Jimmy G will get a starting job somewhere next year, week 1. Whether it's to mentor another quarterback that was drafted, or, just to maybe give him a year to see if he can, be kind of an elite quarterback. His numbers overall are not bad, so I think someone will give him a year to at least, be their quarterback next year. But yeah, he's your typical average quarterback. Next, we have Taylor Heinicke. So this is an interesting thing with Taylor Heinicke. You gotta put him. I will put him slightly above Baker, but I believe he's a below average quarterback. He is. If you're Washington, think about this. You're the Washington franchise going into the 2021 season with Taylor Heinicke as your starting quarterback. It's like, what do you think's going to happen? You're obviously not going to be very good. Like, what are these franchises thinking? You want to go out and get a quarterback, do something? No. Taylor Heinicke is not going to win you 12, 13 games. It's just not going to happen. He's a below-average quarterback, and I hope Terry McLaurin leaves Washington, and because if he signs an extension with Washington, that would sink his career. Terry, you got to leave Washington, please. You're a good receiver. Go to a good quarterback. Like, what if you're Washington? You're going into the season with Taylor Heinicke. Do you really think the season's going to turn out well? Really? Like, do you like best case scenario? Your starting quarterback Taylor Heinicke starts all 17 games. What do you think is going to happen? I just thought that was so egregious that they went into the season all happy that Taylor Heinicke was their starting quarterback. Next, we have Russell Wilson. What a disappointing season it was for Russell Wilson. Really, his first down year in the NFL. It was kind of surprising. I would probably throw him right here in the average category. Maybe, was he better than Jimmy G? I mean, he's so tough to rank. You've got DK Metcalf. You've got Tyler Lockett. He did get injured. His one finger got injured when he slapped it on a helmet. He was out for about 4 weeks. He came back. And just a really uncharacteristic down year for Russell Wilson. You could make an argument Jalen Hurts was better. You really could, but we're going to leave him right there in the mid-tier average. Really, his first down year, we expect a big bounce-back year from Russell Wilson. We'll have to see if he gets traded. Seattle needs draft capital, so we'll have to see if they trade him for something. Maybe him on the Indianapolis Colts with Jonathan Taylor. They get a number 1 receiver. That would be interesting. That would be really interesting. Next, we do have Justin Fields. So with Justin, I'm gonna put him at the back end of below average. He's another rookie thrust into a bad situation, but I did like his running ability. I thought he brought something, something a little different to the table. That Monday night game against the Steelers, the elite throws he had. If you want one game to watch of Justin Fields, that Monday night game against the Steelers. Also, he made some really elite throws against the Lions at home, I believe, that when I was watching his highlights. Justin Fields made some really good throws. He's got a great arm. He's elusive. He can run. Not great stats. I believe 7 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. You could argue he was, put him in the unplayable category. Again, it's tough with these rookie quarterbacks thrust into horrible situations. They're just not going to play well. They have no experience. They're young. They're going to make mistakes. They're not going to play well. It is what it is. But Justin Fields will put on at the back end of below average. I think there's a situation like imagine replacing Mac Jones with Justin Fields on New England. I think that would turn him into an average quarterback. Just that system, just what they asked Mac Jones to do, kind of manage the game. So I'm going to put Justin Fields at the back end of below average. Next, we have Matt Ryan. I don't see. Look at this. Why is Matt Stafford here twice? That's the thing. I just noticed that. We're going to take Detroit Lions Matt Stafford out and put in the Los Angeles Rams Matt Stafford. I'm not sure why that is. I guess it's just some glitch. Next, we've got Matt Ryan. And with Matt Ryan, this one hurts. We're going to go ahead and put him. He's somewhere in the average as well, honestly. I would throw him right next to Big Ben. They fit each other, right? Veteran quarterbacks who Atlanta just couldn't generate yards. The Calvin Ridley situation, he's thrown to no one. What is there to say with Matt Ryan? Could Matt Ryan go to another team? Imagine Matt Ryan goes to Indianapolis. This is the exact type of quarterback Indianapolis would sign. Remember when they had Phillip Rivers for 1 year? They have Carson Wentz for 1 year. Next year, it's Matt Ryan for 1 year. He goes to Indianapolis for a year. Yeah, I mean, he seems like he can still win a few games. He's not completely washed like Big Ben, but it's just tough to rank him. I mean, everyone knew Atlanta had, they weren't making the playoffs. They have no offense. They have no offensive players. Cordero Patterson, we'll give him a shout out. We'll give Cordero a shout out. But other than that, they've got no one. Daniel Jones, I'll put him at the front end of below average right now. Daniel Jones can run. He really can. He got injured week 9, week 10, so he couldn't finish out the season. That dude has a weird ability to run the football where he's actually decently fast. Throwing, still not great. They did sign, their big free agent signing in the offseason. Kenny Golladay had 0 receiving touchdowns. And Saquon was injured early, came back. He doesn't look like himself. It looks like the injuries have really taken a toll on him. Daniel Jones can do some things. He'd be a good backup quarterback. But as a starter, it's basically time for the Giants to move on. Like, all of these guys have significant, except for Justin Fields, who was a rookie. All of these guys, is Daniel Jones really going to be a starter next year? Are they going to try him next year? Taylor Heinicke should not be. They're going to try Baker. Baker had the injury situation. These two guys are just journeyman quarterbacks, and then Justin Fields was a rookie. Next, we have Trevor Lawerence. This hurts. It really does. I think we're splitting hairs. I think he was slightly better than Zach Wilson. You know, the number 1 overall pick. He was, again, thrust into a terrible position. Urban Meyer as his head coach. We know how badly he flopped. But what did he finish with? Like 9 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, something like that. It's tough, man. It really is tough. What are you going to do? But last year, you have to throw him in that category. He's a young quarterback. I have high hopes for him. If I was ranking on upside, I'd probably move him to average or above average for upside. But right now, he was unplayable last year. That's where I got to rank him. Next is Mac Jones. So Mac Jones might, you know what? Who did I say was the most average quarterback? Tua? It might be Mac Jones. No, you know what? We'll put Mac Jones like right next to Jameis. Yeah, I like that. So we'll throw Mac Jones right next to Jameis. He did what he was asked. You know, really, you know, Bill Belichick with a rookie quarterback, they didn't take the training wheels off. A lot of runs. He kind of fizzled out towards the end of the season, and then they had the blowout playoff loss to Buffalo. A lot of that was on the defense. But Mac Jones, your typical average quarterback. He's a rookie. They didn't ask him to do much. That's where he sits. And finally, because I don't know why Matt Stafford is here again, finally, Aaron Rodgers, the last and final. Funny that he's last. I am going to move him to number 1 overall. He is the MVP. Again, there were people arguing, was Brady better? He had more total yards. He had way more touchdowns. But Rodgers, I believe, touchdown interceptions, 37 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. His receiving core, other than Devontae Adams, really underwhelming. I mean, Allen Lazard is your number 2 receiver. To put up 37 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, that's impressive for Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers, number 1, we'll have to see. He's got to perform well in the playoffs. He's got to at least make the Super Bowl this year. Green Bay, the number 1 seed again. They're going to have home field throughout the entire playoffs. For Aaron Rodgers, it just comes down to making the Super Bowl. He's going to win another MVP very likely. I saw the odds overall were like minus 650. So these are my overall quarterback rankings. Aaron Rodgers, number 1 overall. It's tough it's splitting hairs with these two guys. I am going to leave Brady over Burrow. His season was really impressive. And, I mean, he's 43. You know, it is what it is. And then Josh Allen and Mahomes. I like that elite tier. I like those top 5 guys for 2021. I like that. And then the above average, almost elite tier. Justin Herbert just missing it. Matt Stafford, Dak, Kyler, and then we will throw Kirk Cousins. Will be nice. Throw him on the back end of above average. A lot of average quarterbacks. I mean, you could throw Lamar Jackson to above average. It's just depending on how do you rank these guys. Like Lamar Jackson this year, I would say he's above average, but he's not above average to the point where I'm going to move him up there. You know, that's what I would say with him. Tua at the back end of average. I mean, these guys are just so tough to rank. I mean, you could put Tua over Matt Ryan and Big Ben. I guess you're splitting hairs with these guys because those are my final rankings with the unplayable guys. Of course, you've got the 2 rookies, and then you've got Sam Darnold, right? Sam Darnold, the worst quarterback, at least according to me, in 2021. He was epically bad. He wasn't a rookie. He had DJ Moore. Christian McCaffrey got injured. We understand that, but still, Robbie Anderson, too, he had weapons. He's just a terrible quarterback. He's a terrible starting quarterback. So, guys, those are my overall rankings for the 32 quarterbacks in 2021. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.